Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss will take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. You set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition, post-election, primary election, of the Don McKeag Show. We are so happy to be here, and we are, as you know, a talk show where you have an opportunity to call in and express your opinions, unlike many other shows or the newspapers or the television. So you will see the number posted on the screen. Jot it down. If something touches your fancy, give us a call. We try to stay on topic, but we cover a variety of things. Those that are visiting us here, watching us for the first time, my name is Don McKeag. I'm a resident right now of Carver, and I do a radio talk show on Cape Cod station WXTK on Saturdays from 11 to 1. For years, I was on every morning from 7 to 10, and we cover a variety of issues. Hopefully, there's some of interest to you. If not, again, please just hang in there, because I think maybe you will find something of interest. And again, you can share it with us. I always start both the radio show and now this show with a quote that was uttered by Martin Luther, who, of course, was one of the bravest men in history. He took on the entire Catholic hierarchy at the time, which was the basically one and only Christian spokesperson. And it had become, as mankind always does, even if it's a religion, it had become corrupt and despotic and, you know, a very abusive hierarchy. Not the religion. I clear this up. I am a Catholic. It is not the religion, it is the people. It is just like I take on the Democratic Party now as a former Democrat, because the leadership is so far from what I, as a Democrat for most of my life, followed. The John F. Kennedy Democrat. The ask not what your country's going to do for you, what are you going to do for your country kind of Democrat. Not the illegal being legal. Not the handout mentality that we now have under the guise of kinder and nicer and more in touch. But that's being said, you know, as part of my genre, because I really firmly believe it. But the quote by Martin Luther, and I want to read it because it, to me, is so pertinent to today's United States of America and what we once were and what I see us no longer becoming. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he or she must take it because their conscience tells them it is right. We want to talk a little bit today, of course, post-election, and what you might think about about the results of these elections. I'm very concerned. Other than the removal of John Tierney, which was long overdue, we have again seen the same basic Democratic in the tank winners, I believe, in most cases. I hope the Republican Party does not try to be Democrats. Again, they're candidates. But as I've said before, I am very concerned with the female vote, nationally and statewide. We have got to stop, one, party politics, and two, we've got to stop. We can't afford to vote gender or sexual proclivity or anything else. We have to vote for the person who best will represent the majority interests in this country. We've forgotten that. This country was by the majority. I thought I'd read, this is kind of a humorous thing, and the definitions that I wonder if the schools today, I was a former school teacher also in Hingham and Rockland, and loved it, loved teaching. And remind me, I'll get back to my old alma mater, the University of Massachusetts, a little later. But here is the definition of communism. With communism, you have two cows, the government takes both of them and gives you part of the milk. Think about it. Socialism, you have two cows, the government takes one and gives it to your neighbor. Who's that sound like today? Who's that sound like? Think of Mexico. I keep calling the Democrats, they should have to be renamed the Democratic Socialist Party. Fascism, you have two cows, the government takes both cows and sells you the milk. Nazism, you have two cows, the government takes both of your cows, then shoots you. Bureaucracy, you have two cows, the government takes both of them, shoots one, milks the other, then pours the milk down the drain. Now these are humorous, but they are so on the money. Finally, capitalism, as flawed as our system can be. You have two cows, you sell one, and you buy a bull. This is how America used to be. This is what capitalism really is. It is individual efforts. It is individual opportunities. It is not government taking care of you, which is what the Democratic Party has become. What happens in a democracy? Supposed to. In a democracy, everyone has two cows. Then a vote is taken, and whatever the majority decides to do, you do. And that's no bull. So there you have excellent, tongue-in-cheek, but right on the money definitions of forms of government. As an English teacher, as a very absolute strong advocate of education, I am appalled at the fact that we see in public schools too much about feelings, about things like bullying and things like all sorts of issues that have taken our young people away from academics, away from history. And I don't suggest there aren't teachers who do an excellent job, but merit, you know, that was, in my humble opinion, the biggest flaw, and it continues to be in any kind of minority attempts by the liberal community to even the playing field. When merit is not at the core of the decision making. I don't care if someone is female, black, gay, male, whatever they are. If they do not have the qualifications, if they do not have the abilities, liberalism harms them. It does not help them. It's pie in the sky nonsense. And in our schools, I'm sad to say, educators have gone the feelings route, not the facts route. But going along with a little humor in male and female, my friend Karen Bukes is in the back with his lovely wife Karen, and they do Talk of the Town, their show on this station on Wednesdays. Karen gives me a hard time, and the radio people, because I do point to men are no bargain, by the way. I'm not suggesting that we are not flawed. We are. But today, I am so concerned with the pandering to the feminine side. I'm waiting to hear people start, and there are women who are pandering to their masculine side, and those are the ones that are getting it right. Those are the ones who stand up for something that might not be going along with the women's liberation movement, shall we say. A lot of them have left it anyway because it's been a dismal failure. Now, that does not mean that women should not have gained many of the things they have. So again, people love to get defensive. But what I'm saying is that we can't afford, as I said earlier, we can no longer afford votes based on feelings. We can't have minor issues in the big picture determine how someone's going to vote. You know, gay marriage is not in the big picture a major factor because it is a minor incident in our culture. It does not mean we don't address it. It means you don't have people who, when someone is not for gay marriage or is pro-life versus pro-choice, that's their reason for not voting for that person. It's really dangerous. But anyway, and a friend of mine gave me the kind of humorous thing about, who's that playing the piano? Is that me? By the way, that intro is Dave McKenna playing for yours truly, Donald McKeag, and when you're singing with Dave McKenna, the late Dave McKenna, you're not going to sound too bad. But anyway, you may not know this, but a lot of non-living objects are actually either male or female. Here are some examples. Freezer bags. Kenny, would you say that freezer bags were male or female? No, they are not female. They are male because they hold everything in, but you can see right through them. Now, photocopiers, would you say they were male or female? They are female, and the reason is, once they're turned off, it takes a while to warm them up again. They are an effective reproductive device if the right buttons are pushed, but can also wreak havoc if you push the wrong buttons. Now, what about tires? Kenny, you should know this one. Are tires male or female? They're male, they are. And you know why? Because they go bald easily and they're often overinflated. Now, hot air balloons, I'm sure you will pick that as male because it's true. Hot air balloons are a male object because to get them to go anywhere, you have to light a fire under their butt. Finally, sponges. What about sponges? These are female. That's right, Karen. These are female because they are soft, squeezable, and retain water. Now, what about web pages? All you guys in the control tower there, what are web pages? Are they male or female? No, they are female because they're constantly being looked at and frequently getting hit on. That's female. Trains. Now, what are trains? Are they male or female? They are male because they always use the same old lines for picking up people. Now, egg timers. What about egg timers? No, they are female because over time all the weight shifts to the bottom. Now there's only a couple of more, so we'll give that. Now, hammers are definitely male because in the last 5,000 years, they've hardly changed at all and are occasionally handy to have around. Finally, the remote control, Karen. Would you say that was male or female? No, it's female, which you probably thought it would be male. But consider this. A remote control is female because it easily gives a man pleasure. He'd be lost without it. And while he doesn't always know which buttons to push, he just keeps trying. Now we should have music to play on that, you know, but we don't. So that's because Kenny can't get his computer done. All right. Anyway, we have our number up there, ladies and gentlemen, 508-830-3971. I jot down little things that I'd like to talk about during the week on these two shows, both radio and this television show. If you're watching, you'll know it's Channel 13 on Comcast and Channel 43 on Verizon Vios, and we also, by the way, I don't know if I've got it handy in front of me, which I'll find it. We are rebroadcast during the week. I know it's 11 o'clock on Monday night, and it is 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. The other one I'll have to find. In addition to the we have a full hour here, and in addition to the election results, we've had I was also a football, baseball coach in high school. I'm a big believer in sports for people. Last week I talked about a wonderful op-ed from the Quincy Patriot Ledger regarding the what I consider to be the abuse of not the kids, but of parental interference and also over-exuberant, I call them ego-centered coaches. And that's at all levels who, I believe, exposing our younger kids especially. Too many games, too much stress on winning. And believe me, nobody wants to win. When I was coaching, that's what you're there for. But you're not there to learn about life when it's all about winning. You're there to learn how to appreciate teamwork. And you're there to learn how to get up when you're knocked down, when you lose. Life is really more beneficial when things are tough. Because anyone can do well when everything's going well. It's what do we do when things don't go so well. And of course, this is why I'm also concerned. I was never much of a church goer, but I believe deeply in God and in a divine power, and that every single individual's life is important, even though in this plane, in other words, their life on this earth may have appeared to either have been a waste, or if someone dies extremely young, to have been a tragedy, which it is for us. But as I've grown older, I no longer believe that it's a tragedy. I believe it was just that individual's time. And so I think that one of the problems in this country definitely is we've lost our moral center, our moral core, which came from our founding fathers, who had a strong belief in God and believed in the Judeo-Christian faith. This is not to say they were intolerant of others, but this nonsense now, again, by the liberal establishment, I believe, led by the left wing of the Democratic Party, is either by design or through just a process of transition, diminishing the importance of a God, a higher power in the lives of all of us, and we are the losers for it. And I will continue to speak that way. Now, we're talking about professional athletics, and we're talking about one of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Look at how we are worshiping our athletes today and our movie people and all of this. I mean, it's out of sight. People will not go to church, but they will bend over backwards to go to a Red Sox game and pay. You know, a father taking his son, he's lucky to get out of it for $300. But boy, they'll gripe about what the father will gripe about what the doctor charges or the dentist charges or how much the drug companies are charging. It's amazing to me. The Red Sox just signed, I don't know whether he's from Cuba or what, $72 million for an untried player. It's a 7-year period. No one says a word about it. We pay somebody that bats 182. Do you realize that's not even 2 times out of 10 that they're successful? And they make $80 million. That's what Ross, that was playing for the Red Sox, gets. There is no, again, this goes back to affirmative action. They're paid that whether they bat it, whether they produce or not. Try that in the private sector. Try that in the real world. Try that in a hospital. How'd you like to have a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer that's batting 186 in their patient successes or in their court cases? You wouldn't tolerate that, would you? But the nitwittery, the absolute out of control hero worship of our athletes is just, to me, again, mind-boggling. So there was just $1.4 billion paid for the Buffalo Bills. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. $1.4 billion. And the basketball team, where they again stepped over the line by making this man for racial slurs, had to sell his business. I'm not sticking up for him, but my word, he had to sell his business because his expression of what we used to call freedom of speech. Now, the do-gooders, the liberal establishment, the minority nitwits, sorry, they are against everything the Founding Fathers has sat down. They don't even know it. Anyway, that basketball team was sold for $1 billion. The Red Sox can pay this untried, never mind their other salaries, and they don't pay a full property tax. Not only did they not pay a full property tax, but they were given some of that land on the street on either side, and they get tax credits. Now, when Governor Bill Weld gave Raytheon, who at the time I believe had 680 or 800 employees or more, when he gave them a tax credit, he was vilified in that rag, I call it, the Boston Globe. Sorry, it is. I wouldn't give him a nickel. They call that corporate welfare. Here's a company that provides jobs for that many people. They're also part of our defense armament system. They're vilified, but the Red Sox, who pay people hundreds of millions of dollars to play a kid's game, that's perfectly all right in the liberal establishment. The highest ticket in professional sport is the Boston Red Sox and the New England Patriots. No competition, by the way. I was a Boston Braves fan. I'm old enough to remember that. My dad was in the Boston Braves chain. I remember going into old Braves Field, which Boston University eventually had. And they had the keyhole gang or something like that where you look through to watch the ball games. But I mean, I was in the restaurant business. And of course, the public They think everyone should be able to get a liquor license. Everyone should open up a restaurant. Anyone should be able to, all the chains, they don't care about a local family-run business that's been there 50 years, whether or not they succeed or not. Oh, let all the chains in, because that's fair. That's fair competition. Survival of the fittest. We don't even have a National League baseball team in all of New England, and that's fair? And then they get a tax credit? $1.4 billion for the Buffalo Bills, and that's before they pay all the salaries. But Mitt Romney, and I don't care if he's a Republican, this is not me talking Republican or Democrat, this is me trying to get to people. All of this, to me, is a message to you, hopefully, going back to what I just read you in the year 1526 by Martin Luther. Conscience. There comes a time when your vote should be the one that you know in your conscience is for the better person. Not the one that's going to give you everything or that's a member of your party. But we had a man, Mitt Romney runs for president, and the fact that he made a lot of money was a factor, you know, the resentment factor, that envy that the Democrats play. Of course, and I was a great friend of the Kennedys, so it's not personal. No one said a word about the Kennedys' fortune when they were running. In fact, that was a positive. That's never a negative. In fact, they'll say, look at that makes him qualified to be president. He's capable of making millions. Again, the double standard is just mind-boggling for an intelligent, supposedly an intelligent population. And do they change their mind? They just get mad. They get mad rather than change their opinion when facts hit them. I don't care who's running for president. I don't care how much money they have. That should not be a positive or a negative, in my humble opinion. But again, there's no limit to what they pay athletes or movie stars. Some of those guys, that Ashton Kutcher I mentioned, I read where, this is a couple of years ago, he was taking over for Charlie Sheen on that 2.5 Men. I watch very little television. I watch PBS where they have great programming. I watch BBC stuff. It's fabulous. But I'm old. You know, I'm not hip, I guess. But the point is, Ashton Kutcher was getting $782,000 per show. I don't hear anybody complaining about that. And you know who pays that? You and me. All those ads, that Super Bowl ad, you know, it's something like 1.7 million per second or per every 10 seconds. That's what they pay for the Super Bowl commercials. Isn't that it's just, to me, it's amazing. Well, as a graduate of the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, it was just on television last night that they had a very successful fundraising the last year or two. $752 million in endowments. Now, Harvard, before the stocks changed, so I don't have a current figure, but I do know at one time they had $52 billion in endowments. BU, MIT, all of these major fine universities, they have correspondingly huge revenues. They yet don't pay a full property tax. It was based on when John Harvard, among others, first started Harvard College. The same thing with churches. I want you to understand why this, when you hear these liberal nonsense talkers about ability to pay, That only means in the private sector. The businessman or the person who's making a lot of money working for someone else in the private sector. The sacred cows are the churches, the universities, the professional teams. And when you point this out, you won't have an argument with me if you just treat everybody the same. Millions and millions of dollars in tax revenue that should be paid by all of those major universities and all of those professional teams and all of those, I don't care what it is. And then they file for nonprofit status and they build up these fortunes. But the reason that got me into this as a graduate of the university, when I went back in the actually early 60s, tuition was low. I'm talking to you mothers, especially anybody that's out there listening, because that's who's concerned about schools, you know. Never enough for schools. They always got to have anything they want just about. So they elect Elizabeth Warren, who makes $360,000 a year teaching 1 or 2, that's way, full health benefits and all. And she runs on and wins on her support of our college kids and helping relieve them of their tuition bills after they graduate, which, I might add, is atrocious to hard-working families who've had to give up. They've driven used cars and all. But what I'm saying to you is all of these endowments, all of these tax credits, University of Mass, instead of it being when I went there, it was $250 per semester. Now, I don't suggest it should be the same. But here you have one of only 100. That's the senators in this country, Elizabeth Warren, who's making $360,000, whose college, whose university gets tax credits, doesn't pay full property tax, and yet tuitions continue to choke the young people and their parents. $752 million to the university. Do you think you're going to read about tuition costs dropping? This is what I mean about there is no common sense today, and there is no willingness. You don't think college professors are going to do anything different, do you? You don't think they're going to complain? We had a guy from the Cape, Hastings Keith, who was a congressman for years, Cape, a Republican. In his retirement, he was receiving, now think about the insanity of this, and this goes on now. He was receiving more in his retirement than he ever made as a congressman. Much more. He tried to give the money back. They laughed at him. We have public school teachers now retiring with amazing retirements because they get 80% of the last 3 years' revenue. You, the worker out there sitting there, you get Social Security. It's based on how much you put into the fund. Not anymore. And that's a sham in education because it was based on the fact that I was teaching at the time. And the elder teachers, when they retired, they had such a poor retirement because it was based on my first teaching job. I got $4,500 a year. Not anymore. And all the benefits still go in education. To think, and I keep hopping on this, I don't care if it's Plymouth or Carver or Barnstable or Rockland or Weymouth where I'm from, the tax rates that are absorbed by the cost of education are ludicrous. They are criminal. Any of you that can accept paying 60 and 70% of your property tax, what? So the schools can then have illegals get free education? Colleges don't pay a full property tax. We pick up the tab, but somebody from Pakistan or Africa or wherever else they come from, Poland, gets a free education? And that's the other thing about the University of Mass. They have these quotas. They have what about all the hard-working Massachusetts residents that pay their taxes and they can't get their own kids into the university? There's no room for them. I don't know anybody else that's talking about what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about the truth. And if it offends you, good. You're the problem. Now I know we'll have somebody going to another channel if they've stayed this long. So anyway, that's my thought there. And here is my concern, again now, for the political system. Did I mention, Kenny, when I came in, I was leaving the gym on my way here, and I put a tie on. I haven't said this, have I? I'm on a roll, so I hadn't mentioned my tie for Steve.
You haven't mentioned your tie, no.
One of the fellow members of the gym, Plymouth Fitness, by the way, give him a little plug, said, "That's quite a tie. You get all the Looney Tunes on the tie." And I said, well, that's by design. Every time I'm talking about the politics of Massachusetts, I'm going to wear my Looney Tunes tie. And if that offends, I love it.
Tell them to call you up and
Call me up. I tell you, I'm asking, but they must be, I know they're mesmerized by my dialogue, my monologue, and I'm right. I'm right. Anyway, the number's up there, 508-830-3971. Well, Kenny, you're standing right here. Now, what's your thoughts? I mean, are you going to disagree with anything I've said so far?
No, I'm not. I love your tie.
Are you going to? You love my tie. What about the content of my...
So far, you've been right on.
So far? You say that doubting that I can continue,
No,
is that?
I just think that people need to call you up and tell you their opinion so that we can really get a dialogue.
Well, that is true. But again, I love the expression, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know where it came from, and I'm paraphrasing it. The lie needs 1,000 legs.
Yes, it does.
The truth stands on but one. So if you can't confront what I'm saying with legitimate reasoning, why call? Unless you want to give the host a hard time, that's okay with me too.
Give you a voice.
Yes. Well, they should, but anyway. Now, the good news is pot sales may rake in $8.2 billion by 2018. Now, how about this for common sense, ladies and gentlemen? Remember what the motivation for legalizing pot, that's marijuana for some of you older people.
Cannabis?
Was cannabis, and yes, but it was for the poor people with cancer, which I have no problem with. People with cancer are not going to generate anywhere near $8.2 billion in sales. This is another sham of this government who overspends your tax dollar and is looking for new sources of revenue. There's no morality here, none. Young Patrick Kennedy wrote an article that I called out I cut it out of USA Today. Now here's the son of my friend, the late Ted Kennedy, who I loved as a guy, disagreed with some of his politics, but anyway, that's another matter. But Patrick has gone on record as having trouble with drugs and some alcohol issues. He says in regards to this pot sales and the legalization. Now, this is son of the liberal lion. This is the Kennedy liberal establishment that the Democrats cling to, unless, of course, they're against their basic agenda, which is We're fine as long as you agree with us on everything. Even their own, they can't allow someone to be against their particular issue. That wind farm, former Congressman Bill Delahunt was against it, Ted Kennedy was against it, and all the leftists could say was, that's because it was NIMBY, not in my backyard, which was nonsense. They were against it because of the expense, one, and two, where are the environmentalists? 130 towers in Nantucket Sound, one of the most beautiful areas, in an area that is heavily under the gun for hurricanes, which will tear those towers apart. Doesn't matter, though, to the left. They're going to get their way. And heaven forbid one of their own points to a crack in why they shouldn't do something. Patrick Kennedy states, as states rush unwisely to legalize marijuana, will this president be remembered for reforming our broken healthcare system or for watching the commercialization of a new legal drug that threatens healthy brain development and the mental health of our children? Got any fault with that? Mothers? Huh? And fathers that like to smoke the weed? You got any problems with one of the problems has been the young minds, young people that are still in physical and mental development are so susceptible to huge damage from alcohol and drugs introduced at an early time. The whole medical profession knows it. Again, I'm going to fault the medical profession with picking selective outrages. You see the anti-smoking dialogue over and over again, which I have no problem with other than the extremes. But where are they in standing up against reintroducing another commercialization, as Patrick said, of another drug that I am telling you will leave a huge wake when it becomes $8.2 billion in revenue. That's even the headline tells you where these people are coming from. It's the money. They're not concerned about the physical impact on our culture. It is just, again, Rome fell for the same reason. They were handing out free tickets to the Colosseum. They were giving free wine, free bread, and then wondered why the barbarians came right through the gates. We don't even have a gate anymore. We just let the illegals come across. And Martha Coakley, by the way, I hope you're happy, Democrats, to think of her, the top legal authority. I keep saying this because I want to drive it home. The top legal authority in this state makes the statement technically in Massachusetts illegal isn't illegal and gets away with it. We're nuts, you know. That's insanity. Like paying $1.4 billion for a football team that plays 14 games, if they're lucky. Patrick goes on to say, because addiction is a disease that starts in adolescence, industries know they have to focus on young people for profits. After all, if you don't start using any drug by age 21, you are unlikely ever to do so. Now we know why big tobacco marketeers use cartoons and candy to hook kids. We are seeing the same thing play out in states such as Colorado and Washington. We are expanding health care, including mental health care, to our young people. How can we, in the same breath, be okay with pot legalization? Our country cannot afford another industry that glamorously commercializes addictive drugs and expects the rest of us to pick up the tab for all of the social problems they cause. Patrick Kennedy, honorary board member, smart approaches to marijuana. What Patrick misses, just like the woman that I read a letter of hers where she blames the private sector, there's no question about those in the industry that are producing the marijuana, bringing it in. But it's only the politicians, Patrick, and you Democrats, that are making it legal. The companies aren't. For it to become legal, the politicians have to vote for it. Only one reason the politicians would vote for it, because in most cases, they're getting funded for their re-election campaigns. Or two, as I just said before, they haven't got enough money. They need more tax revenue. We have pension funds that are unfunded in the state of Massachusetts. You government employees that think you have it made, let me tell you, the only thing that makes things made is when the government keeps printing money. And that is about to fall down. This is, again, in a different way, this is another buildup to a major financial crash. And I am not a doomsayer. I am a realist, and I use facts. Look it up. We have pension funds that are underfunded or not funded, but they're there. People running for office can't get elected. I could not get elected standing on a podium, traveling town to town in Massachusetts today. I would not be able to be elected, even though everything I've said is the truth. Everything. Getting back to the illegals, time's going fast. California. We all know we've had to bail California. California is bigger. They have a bigger economy than many European and other countries. They're bigger geographically, and they're bigger. Their budget's bigger. In the United States of America, they've gone bankrupt twice. And they continue their same irresponsible spending behaviors, which I might add, are controlled, as Massachusetts, by Democrats. California is controlled by Democrats. Now, let's take it to the smallest commodity, a family. Now, the father and mother are providing the revenue in order to clothe, feed their children, educate their children, again, house their children, and all of a sudden, one of them is laid off, or one of them loses their job, which has happened in the past 4 years quite frequently. Excuse me. Now, that being said, so now their revenue's down. Their ability to pay their bills is down. The son or the daughter, or they come in and they want to raise in their allowance. Parents say, okay. Would they say okay? Would you say okay? Your revenue's down, but you're going to continue to increase there. Or you're going to buy them a car. This is what we're doing. Towns, for too long, they've been building brand new schools, and the teachers' unions then get a raise on top of it, or the firemen, or the police. I'm going to hop on this. It's insanity. Bond issues to build the buildings, and then the employees get raises. And it's a racket because the parents, especially working mothers, are on a guilt trip. They can't say no to the schools because they're taking care of their children. It is a shame, and I did it for 14 years, and we didn't expect to make a lot of money. We did it because we loved the kids. And I never saw a teacher go broke. I saw some teachers leave, the early teachers, because they could not afford to stay teaching, especially, for instance, when young couples get married and the wife gets pregnant. You know, they get married and they start out, they buy a house and they've got two incomes in many cases. Now the second income stops. But that was, again, the idea of giving better pay to teachers. I don't suggest that there shouldn't have been an adjustment. I mentioned that before, but not today, not today. Elizabeth Warren and college professors making that kind of money, working those kind of hours, and she represents the working class woman out there, and she got elected. No hypocrisy there. Have you heard the ads that they're doing against Scott Brown? Listen for the one that is just enough to drive you off the road if you have a half a brain. First of all, they've been vilifying him, even though he was legitimately in New Hampshire for years. I never heard any ads. They may have been because it was New York, but no one has ever said anything wrong about Hillary Clinton becoming a senator from New York or Bobby Kennedy. Again, it's just an amazing phenomenon. But anyway, this particular commercial is talking about Scott Brown's support of, let me see now, of course, it's the business community. And all of a sudden, I just drew a little blank here, so I'll have to recover it. Maybe Kenny remembers the commercial. It's enough. Do you remember that commercial?
It's about jobs.
No, it isn't just about jobs. It has to do with, oh, I know. The comparison was that it's another do-good, feel-good, hand-wringing appeals to the women, Karen. Sorry. Oh, together we can. Deval Patrick, together we can. I knew he was going to win the minute I heard that nonsense. But anyway, it has to do with, the commercial goes about the leaves and the environment, and that Scott Brown voted. He said, it says, this isn't Texas. We don't want to have drilling for oil in New Hampshire. Now, of course, it had to do with the cost of gasoline and the oil company ability to drill, which of course affects the price of your gasoline. You hard-working stiffs out there from Massachusetts that have to drive over the bridge. By the way, and you use 25% more gas because now they've dug up the road so badly that you're sitting in traffic, but nobody talks about that. And Martha Coakley, just to bring this right in, just remember this, she and most Democrats, because they need and want the tax revenue, is in favor of that automatic gas tax. Think about that, Democrats, when you go to vote. If, of course, you're not getting your gas paid for by the school or by the fire department or the police department. Think about that. They don't have to ask. They don't have to ask the taxpayer, all of us. They don't have to put it to a vote to automatically raise the cost of gas, which is basically to put the tax onto the cost per gallon. But you Democrats will take it. You liberals will take it. Doesn't matter. Unless, of course, at Thanksgiving, your kids who are struggling to make their payments and struggling to drive back and forth to work, unless they complain, then all of a sudden you're going to be upset because now it affects you. Not that it's wrong in the first place. Not that, as Martin Luther said, there comes a time when your conscience tells you it's either right or it isn't. Not whether or not you're going to be affected. Is it right for everyone, for your neighbors? So the politic nation here is I hope we're going to see a major shift. I don't know. I'd like to see Charlie Baker. I'd like to see Karen Polito. She's a very qualified gal. But if Martha Coakley, remember that, two things. She's going to tax, just like we've had this Patrick. She's bragged about him being the greatest governor. Now, just think about it. I don't care if she's female. I don't care if she's black or lesbian. That is not what we're voting for. Damn it. We're voting for the way they're going to bring issues and how they're going to handle them and who they're going to have as a supporting cast. Do you want your gas to automatically go up? Do you want illegals to not be illegal? Do you want your daughter going to work speeding and the cop pulls her over, she hasn't got a license with her, and they impound the car? But somebody else can come in, they're getting free education, they don't have insurance on the car, and they don't have a license. And the cops let them go. Not the cops' fault. They let them go because this government, this state, the judges will not prosecute. Is that what you want? Keep voting the same way you have done. It's really sad. It is really sad. And as I say, get mad at Don McKeag for saying these things. I wish I could say them to more people. I wish we could get callers. I wish we had people that get involved. Don't just sit on your hands. The country's slipping away from us. So, God bless you. Thanks for those that are listening. I know I have a couple of minutes left. I'll calm down and just listen to Talk to Me. Remember that tune? I'm trying to think now. Frank Sinatra, I think, did that tune too. I don't used to know who wrote it, but I hope that we can do something this next election. I hope that we can have a change. And again, you're not voting for a Republican. You're voting against who's in office and the job you see not being done. Remember the EBT card fiasco. Nationally, remember what's happened with the IRS. Is that what you want more of? Look at our foreign policy. Are you happy with Obama? Are you happy with John Kerry? If you are, I guess you'll just have to vote. But anyway, I'm glad to have you. I hope we'll see you again next Thursday, God willing, from 6 to 7. And Karen Bukes didn't come in and punch me out, so I must have done all right. Night, folks. Thanks again.